Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 21st Annual Progress Report on the status of Arizona's bioscience sector. I'm Eve Ross. I'm chair of Arizona's Bioscience Roadmap Steering Committee. As many of you know, for more than 20 years, Arizona has followed a strategic plan called Arizona's Bioscience Roadmap to develop a thriving bioscience sector. Why 20 years ago was the decision made to pursue the biosciences? Two primary reasons. One, to strengthen and diversify our state's economy, adding excellent jobs and resiliency during economic downturns. And second, to provide Arizonans with first access to the latest innovations in healthcare and improved health outcomes for Arizonans. During this 21 years, we've seen Arizona grow from a nascent player in the biosciences to one of the fastest growing bioscience states in the nation. A key ingredient to this success is collaboration, our outstanding track record of disparate groups working together to everyone's mutual benefit. Through the Bioscience Roadmap Steering Committee, we convene the state's leading research scientists, company executives, academic administrators, government leaders, investors, workforce developers, elected officials, and more. Out of this consistently emerges new relationships and budding partnerships. Today, we will hear from one of those groups, elected officials who play a really vital role in setting the policy and infrastructure on which the biosciences and other innovation industries can flourish. We are honored today to be joined by Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs, who will speak to the importance of the biosciences in her vision for health outcomes and economic growth in Arizona. She will be followed by 3 Arizona mayors who will speak to the biosciences in their communities: Kate Gallego of Phoenix, David Ortega of Scottsdale, and Regina Romero of Tucson. And finally, we'll hear from the leader of an exemplary bioscience company in our own community, Dr. David Spetzler, a homegrown executive who is president of Caris Life Sciences. And now, please welcome Tammy McLeod, President and CEO of the Flinn Foundation.
Thank you so much, Eve, and good afternoon, everyone. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Flinn Foundation, we're a privately endowed philanthropic grant-making organization that was established in 1965 by Dr. Robert Flinn and his wife, Irene. Our foundation's mission is to improve the quality of life in Arizona to benefit future generations. And we do that by supporting the biosciences, arts and culture, civic leadership, and through our college scholarship program, all of those for the benefit of Arizona. Back in 2002, the Flinn Foundation worked closely with the community on a very regular basis to create the performance of the state's bioscience sector. And as Eve said, we've been doing that for 21 years. During the even-numbered years, we report back on the latest performance metrics at this event. And during the odd-numbered years, like today, we hear the perspectives of bioscience leaders and shine the light on key developments in our bioscience system. Every single year, we also compile a brochure that covers the highlights of Arizona's bioscience sector over the previous year and offers a perspective on where we stand and what might come next. The report covering 2022 is available on our website, and I believe there's also a link in the chat box. In fact, you'll find there an entire catalog of our annual bioscience progress reports that date back to the launch of the roadmap. Despite not having a full set of metrics to report this year, we did look into some statistics on our own. And one of those is the funding by the National Institute of Health. This is a benchmark gauge of the strength of the biomedical research base, and I'm happy to report that the NIH funding received by Arizona's universities, hospitals, and research institutions and companies hit a new record for 2022 by more than 12%, a very healthy gain of increase for a single year. As you know, we're looking at the biosciences today through the perspectives of our elected officials. Not only are there several on the agenda, but we also have many in the audience. And I would like to thank all of the elected officials serving Arizona who are taking time from a very demanding schedule in order to attend today's events. There are too many to cite individually, but we've listed their names on the screen for you right now. I'd also like to cite the leadership of the Bioscience Roadmap Steering Committee. I'm very grateful to Eve Ross and Heather Carter, our chair and vice chair, respectively, for their leadership and their dedication to advance Arizona's bioscience sector. And thank you also to Mark Slater, Ron Schupman, and Marty Schultz, our past steering committee chairs who are with us today. Finally, I'd really like to shout out to our Flinn Foundation board members who plan to join us today, Dr. Rick Caselli, Dr. David Gullen, and Heidi Janinga. The vision and the leadership that our foundation board makes possible the Flinn Foundation's commitment to the biosciences. And I'd also like to welcome all of our Flinn Brown Fellows and others who are here today as part of our CivX series. Every month, Dawn Wallace, our VP of Civic Engagement, and her team at the Arizona Center for Civic Leadership hold a webinar to explore a policy issue of importance to Arizonans. They're here with us today to hear about the biosciences from a policy perspective. And now I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, whom we're very honored and privileged to have with us. Governor Katie Hobbs is truly an Arizona original. She was born in Tempe, Arizona, earned her bachelor's in social work at Northern Arizona University, and a master's degree in social work at Arizona State University. After working with homeless youth and helping to run a domestic violence shelter, she served in the Arizona State Legislature for 8 years and as Secretary of State for 4 years. She was elected Arizona's 24th governor in 2022. And please note that for all of our speakers today, you can find their bios via the link in the chat box. Now, Governor Hobbs.
Thank you so much, Tammy, and hello, everyone. It is such an honor to be here. I am very excited to join all of you today, marking another year at the Flinn Foundation and another year of progress in building our biosciences ecosystem and a more resilient future for our state. For more than 60 years, Flinn's mission has been to improve the quality of life in Arizona to benefit future generations. And on this, we very much align. As governor, I am working to build an Arizona for everyone. Innovation is at the heart of this mission to find breakthroughs in biosciences, technology, and sustainability. With Flinn's laser focus on outcomes, jobs, wages, patents, and investment, they are a key partner and driver of progress in our state, and the metrics tell the story. As the first social worker to be elected governor in the United States, I think about our economy holistically, much like the work of the Flinn Foundation. The Flinn Foundation looks at our whole ecosystem, the health of our residents, educational opportunities, and civil society. And with their programs, they give our young and early innovators their first chance to succeed. Thinking holistically about our economy requires an all-hands-on-deck approach, much as in social work. The Flinn team reaches across public sector, private sector, industry, educational institutions, and cultural and community organizations. As shared in this year's progress report, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, their historic investment in Arizona represents the best of what Arizona has to offer when we work together. This project takes continuing partnerships and coordination across state and local leaders, as you will hear later from Mayors Gallego, Romero, and Ortega, as well as unprecedented levels of federal collaboration with the forthcoming CHIPS Act. Arizona is in a prime position to fully leverage the CHIPS Act because of the work of Flinn and others coordinating across sectors. Critically, Arizona's semiconductor investments rely on the great workforce developed at our universities and community colleges. We have a solid pipeline of homegrown engineers, technicians, and innovators right here. With the help of Flinn and industry partnerships, we now have ample opportunities to keep talent here and attract new, diverse talent to our state. Today, Arizona is a destination for global innovators. Semiconductor investments are not just the outcome of bioscience, collaboration, and coordination, but will also further future innovation. The chips made here in Arizona will accelerate computing speeds and help us better map and analyze the genome, identifying causes and treatment for chronic and rare diseases. CHIPS is now our 6th C here in Arizona. A 7th emerging C is our care economy. Our needs for both leading edge research and direct care is only growing, and we must work together to meet these workforce needs. One thing is clear, we can't have a strong bioscience sector without a strong education system. The talent that we are able to develop will make the difference in the next 20 years of the bioscience roadmap. When people think of Arizona from a national perspective, I want them to think of us as a talent hub, the go-to place for an innovative and ready workforce that's prepared to take on the jobs of the future. A renewed focus on workforce will pay dividends across industries and undergird future success for both CHIPS and care economies. The work is happening, but it needs to continue. We are attracting and retaining talent. Our ecosystem is flourishing with more community events, capital investments, research grants, patents, and most critically, good paying jobs. As governor, I believe we should be one of the most attractive places for businesses to locate and grow, to attract venture capital funding, to spin out new companies and technologies, and more. We should also be a top location to attract federal funds to serve as catalysts for new innovations. Arizona is currently home to the largest CHIPS and IRA investments, with TSMC and LG's battery manufacturing plant just announced in Queen Creek. And these investments ripple across our economy and state. I'm poised to keep Arizona on top. The only way this happens is if we have a strong education system that prepares our students to succeed and meet the workforce challenge. Meeting the workforce challenge is rooted in education. P-12, universities, community colleges, apprenticeships, and on-the-job training. Education not only changes lives and improves family outcomes, it also can create immense opportunities for our state, addressing our future workforce needs. As more Arizonans earn a credential or degree, our communities and our state will become stronger. A strong, comprehensive education system means more state revenue, less reliance on social services, less crime and healthcare expenses, and more. A stronger ecosystem overall where all can succeed. If we can align our education, business and industry, workforce and career and technical education sectors, we can grow our next generation of talent in high-wage, high-growth careers. And that's why I've asked for $10 million in my budget for community college, especially focused on STEM. We can also make progress towards our state's educational attainment goal, Achieve 60 AZ. Ideally, we will have pathways that help students identify and explore their interests, find educational pathways, receive real-world experiences through internships along the way, and have support to earn a degree or credential. By developing these education pathways, Arizona will be able to take the things we've achieved with the Bioscience Roadmap to the next level. So the next breakthrough treatment is found here in Arizona, on technology manufactured in Arizona, administered by specialists and practitioners trained in Arizona. The data points that we hear about in Flinn's annual Bioscience Roadmap Progress Report are also key benchmarks for my administration, and I value Flinn's partnership and work for all of Arizona. Thank you so much to Tammy and the team for their partnership, and thank you to all of you for attending and for your investment in our shared progress as a state rooted in innovation and collaboration.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Brad Halverson, Executive Vice President of the Flinn Foundation, and I would like to thank Governor Hobbs for being with us today and sharing her insights. State level leadership plays a key role in the advancement of the biosciences and innovation industries, and we really appreciate her making the time to meet with the bioscience community today. So I've had the privilege of working with Arizona's Bioscience Roadmap since its launch back in 2002. And through these 20 years, we've repeatedly seen state level progress being bolstered by local developments. Excuse me. And so while the legislature and the governor set the budgets and policies that influence our bioscience sector, our cities and towns make many decisions and investments that have direct impact and lead to concrete outcomes. So we're going to explore this today through the eyes of 3 Arizona mayors whose cities are contributing greatly to our state's bioscience progress. And we're delighted to have with us Mayor Kate Gallego of Phoenix, Mayor Regina Romero of Tucson, and Mayor David Ortega of Scottsdale. So we'll start with each mayor telling us about the importance and impact of the biosciences on their city and potentially future needs and opportunities as well. And they'll each have 5 to 6 minutes to do so. And then we'll take your questions. And please don't be shy. Go ahead and submit them at any time into the Q&A box, and I'll incorporate them into the discussion that will follow the mayor's remarks. And I should mention as well that we had hoped to have the northern hub of Arizona's bioscience sector represented on the panel today. Mayor Becky Daggett of Flagstaff was excited to attend, though had a commitment in Washington, D.C., so she sends her best wishes. We'll start by hearing from Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego. Mayor Gallego has served in her role since 2019, following 4 years on the Phoenix City Council, and she's among the youngest big city mayors in the United States. As mentioned earlier, additional biographical information on each mayor is available through the link in the chat box. So Mayor Gallego, over to you.
Wonderful, Brad. Thank you so much. It is an honor to be with you as we celebrate 2 decades of the roadmap, which has had a huge difference in Phoenix. We are also celebrating 2 decades of what we originally called the Bioscience Campus, which was widely supported by the voters of the city of Phoenix, including bringing multiple ASU programs to our downtown and the University of Arizona Medical Campus to our downtown. We are also right now celebrating a decade of NAU investing in bioscience in the city of Phoenix. So this is a particularly meeting years with the annual convening that Flinn does, and I have been honored to serve on the Roadmap Steering Committee since I took my current position. We have a lot to celebrate in Arizona, and I've really enjoyed working with my fellow mayors. Mayor Romero and I have been working together since we were city councilwomen, and we share a passion for healthy economies and developing the workforce. And then Mayor Ortega and I have worked together and known each other since my days at the Salt River Project. I was a very, very junior economic developer in some of the early days of trying to develop lab space at the behest and idea of Flinn and the chairman of the Bioscience Roadmap at the time, Marty Schultz, and worked alongside David's wife, actually. So showing that we are the world's biggest small town. And now I get to work with Mayor Ortega on bioscience, particularly in the northern part of my city, where we have major bioscience investments, and we can see major bioscience investments in Scottsdale, including some major news that Mayor Ortega will share later today. I got to share some major news in Phoenix last week when I delivered my State of the City. We were very excited to highlight bioscience in our entire city, but in particular, the Phoenix Medical Corridor, which is a health and education innovation epicenter for us. It is in the area near St. Joseph's Hospital, the Park Central Mall, and we were joined by Barrow, who were able to announce really a game-changing investment in the city of Phoenix, where we are going to go to the next level in neuroscience development, including more advanced use of robotics, very cutting-edge therapy, a great public-private philanthropic partnership that will bring the most cutting-edge technology and companies in the world to Phoenix. And so we really want to celebrate that amazing investment, which happens at the same time. The city has partnered with the Mayo Corridor and Discovery Oasis and provided $300 million in financing through our Industrial Development Authority to make that an epicenter of both startups as well as established medical treatment with our partnerships. We are also celebrating Valleywise and their incredible investment, again, with the support of our voters in a bond election that will give the cutting edge burn center and the amazing therapies developed there, as well as other clinics, the type of high caliber facilities that they have long deserved for something that's a huge point of pride for our economy. And so good news in that area. We are also continuing to invest in our original downtown core campus. I have been honored to serve with the University of Arizona on the board of advisors for CAMI, which is doing advanced immunological therapies, and has seen great support from the state of Arizona as well. And so they will hopefully be taking the work already being done by TGen and others to the next level and developing the most advanced cures. Again, we want the path to cure cancer to go through Arizona, and with the work you are all doing, we can do it. And I want to close by highlighting one forward-looking announcement, which is we will go to our voters with a bond election this November. We've had an amazing private sector committee led by Sharon Harper with many bioscience advocates on it, including Dr. Heather Carter, Robin Reed, Rick Neymark, and so many others. And we will ask our voters to support a partnership building that will couple our leadership in semiconductors with our leadership in medical devices and bioscience. And again, make sure our students and researchers have cutting edge facilities, including one new fabulous building to really go to the next level and keep our leadership. I know we're talking about 20 years ago today, but I would trace our leadership in this area even further back to companies like Motorola Life Sciences, which continue to give back. We had a major expansion this year with Schott Minifab investing in Phoenix, and they came because of technology that originally came out of Motorola Life Sciences. And now we're having international investment from Germany that builds on decades of success there. So we've had a lot of amazing news to share, and I look forward to hearing your questions and ideas about where we go from here.
All right, terrific. Thank you, Mayor Gallego, and it's super exciting to hear about the bond election, and we look forward to learning more about that in days ahead. So now I would like to, now we will hear from Mayor Regina Romero, who was elected mayor of Tucson in 2019. And she previously served for 12 years on the Tucson City Council. And Mayor Romero is the first woman and first Latina mayor of Tucson. So Mayor Romero, over to you.
Thank you so much, Brad. Really appreciate you and Tammy and the Flinn Foundation for putting this conversation together and for leading with the Bioscience Roadmap. I also want to thank our Governor Katie Hobbs, for gracing us with her presence and really showing up for bioscience and showing up for cities that are leading on this really important issue for our economy in Arizona. And I also want to thank my sister mayor, Kay Gallego, and my brother mayor, Mayor Ortega, for showing up and for being able to, as mayors usually say, if something good is happening in your city, then I would love to steal it. So if good things are happening and they're happening in cities throughout Arizona, then it's really important that we share these conversations with each other and celebrate each other's accomplishments. Here in the city of Tucson, I'm sorry, I was saying peanuts earlier. Here in the city of Tucson, we have so much to celebrate, and we owe so much to the University of Arizona that is leading in this field. It is really preparing the next generation of doctors and scientists and professors, seeding the future of bioscience here in the city of Tucson. And as mayor, it's my responsibility to create and do everything we possibly can as a city to lend assistance and help, especially to those startup companies that are opening up here in Tucson, Arizona. That's why I'm working with partners like Dr. Robin at the University of Arizona, the Arizona Commerce Authority, Sun Corridor, on our bioscience startups. This framework is spelled out in our comprehensive economic development strategy that we built years ago, and we recently updated in the city of Tucson to really important clusters in that development strategy in the city of Tucson are bioscience, but also the University of Arizona is leading on optics and photonics. And so these are emergent fields in our region, and we're lending a hand to making sure that we're holding hands with the University of Arizona, with Bio5, with the University of Arizona Tech Parks, to make sure that the city of Tucson is creating the incentives that we need. I'm sorry. And allowing for that creativity and innovation to continue sparking here in Tucson. So some of the companies that we're so proud of that are expanding or are starting here in our community, we value them and we want to make sure that they have everything they need from us, so that they can expand their research. One of them is a healthcare startup called Reglagene, which is fighting cancer's resistance to drugs. Another one that I'm super proud of as well is Nuvox Farm. This company has completed phase 1B and phase 2 clinical trials. Its drug can deliver oxygen to tumors. Another one is HTC Molecular Diagnostics, which uses life science tools to unlock transformative drug discoveries. The College of Medicine and so many other programs in the life sciences pipeline at the University of Arizona allow us to meet the workforce demands at Banner Health, at Ventana Medical Systems, at the VA, and other companies that are growing here in Tucson. And finally, I want to take a moment to thank the investors, foundations, and donors who make much of this work possible. And I would be remiss to say to not bring some attention to Pima Community College and organizations like JTED that are building the pipeline of future medical professionals and scientists, so that we have this richness of people, of individuals that will fill the jobs of the future. So very happy to be part of this conversation. Lots to be proud of as a state and as the mayor of the city of Tucson. I'm so happy that one of our clusters that we focus on through our comprehensive economic development strategy is bioscience, and that we're doing it in partnership with not just the University of Arizona, but with Sun Corridor, with the Southern Arizona Leadership Council, with Pima Community College and JTED along the way. So thank you for having us and looking forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you, Mayor Romero, and you absolutely do have a lot of assets and a lot going on in Tucson and in Southern Arizona. We very much appreciate it. And now we'll hear from David Ortega, who was elected mayor of Scottsdale in 2021. And he also served on the Scottsdale City Council for 4 years, beginning in 2000, and has run his own architectural firm for 40 years. And don't forget, if you have questions for the mayors, feel free to add them to the Q&A box. And over to you, Mayor Ortega.
I think you're muted.
That's right. So thank you for having me. Scottsdale became a major player on the world stage in terms of research, cutting edge technology, and patient delivery. That happened in 1987 when the Mayo Clinic opened in Scottsdale, Arizona. We credit that in many ways. People may have felt that was in right field in the medical world, but we had a foundation set by Dr. Merlin Duvall and at the University of Arizona. Credit the research done there, and then Mayo Clinic making a major investment here that has grown phenomenally. We had 15 years later, when the Bioscience roadmap evolved, that was with, again, crediting Senator McCain, Senator Kyle, putting forth leadership, and TGen, of course, then making agreements with Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic had matured. Mayo Clinic by 2002 had matured as a major destination for our medical tourism, which is quite strong in Scottsdale. Also, TGen has agreements with the Virginia Piper Cancer Center and Honor Health. So they are a backbone in Scottsdale for as a destination, and spawning other developments with associated research opportunities. The Phoenix Bioscience campus is amazing. There's also a 5-acre property in Scottsdale that began with pharmaceuticals way back when Dial had major research in Scottsdale. So we have a long-standing tradition of attracting talent and investment to our area. The other thing is we have a collaborative template, and I really appreciate all of the residencies that are offered through the University of Arizona medical campus, the expansion of the nursing schools, and also other I would say coursework or degrees offered at community colleges. These all strengthen every level, leading to excellent patient delivery of healthcare. We're seeing a dramatic shift here in Scottsdale, Arizona as a whole, with the I would call it flight to quality. In many ways, Arizona offers many advantages for redeployment of technology and resources here in Scottsdale, here in Arizona. And we are very aware and share collaboratively what's going on. There's other developments in the, of course, the translational genomics with AI that has created and identified all of these chromosomal informations that allows the lab work to be very targeted. And that's a great step forward. So at this point, we believe that the more collaboration and information exchange, the better. Scottsdale has always welcomed innovation, and of course, what we call the Phoenix, Scottsdale, Tucson Cure Corridor, right? We're working together in a very positive way. And I know as a large metropolitan area, we have the talent here to grow and cultivate and be a major player worldwide. We already are, and we have certainly the aptitude to continue that. So I look forward to the discussion as well. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Ortega, and thank you to all three of our mayors. It's wonderful for our statewide bioscience community to learn what's happening in your community. At this point, just to start a conversation here, we have a lot of people here with us today from the bioscience community, and they're really here to help. So what I would ask is, what do you see as the top bioscience need in your city, and how can leaders in the audience help you get there? And let's start up with Mayor Ortega, since you were on a roll there. Maybe you can take first shot at that.
Well, thank you. Part of what we are dealing with is available space for immediate co-location. And I will throw out an action item that we have the former Hinkle building, which has 66,000 square feet of lab space and close to 100, well, it's another 200,000 square feet of associated space for research. And that altogether makes it an accessible, ready to open facility. And it's not 2 years away, shovel, requiring a lot of development. So we are poised to handle several medium-sized groups in the bioscience area. We're also opening up with state land recent purchases, almost 300 acres, which are now in private hands along the 101. So those are great opportunities for future bioscience projects, as well as ready to move in today.
Okay, and maybe over to Mayor Romero, your greatest bioscience need and what we can do to help.
I think that very important is, I could say that the University of Arizona and our economic development organization, as well as the city of Tucson, is doing so much together to create that space, right? We are going to celebrate pretty soon the University of Arizona building a bioscience lab that it's interdisciplinary work, incredible, not seen anywhere around the state. That really is going to, it's going to be interdisciplinary work from different colleges throughout the University of Arizona. The University of Arizona Tech Parks is investing in continued investing outside of their campus at the Tucson Marketplace Tech Park that we have in an area of our city that we had not seen investment in. And huge tracts of land where we can take advantage of its proximity to the U of A and the University Medical Center South. I would say that one of the biggest needs is to continue investing in public education and creating the pipelines from an early age to STEM careers. And so that early investment in education will prepare the workforce of the future in all of our cities throughout Arizona. And so I would say that's an area of need that we need to continue discussing and creating strategies together as a city that want to have a good quality of life for our residents, high levels of education for our residents. And we need to continue seeing investment, not just from the state, but from individual companies that have been very successful in bioscience in terms of scholarships and internships for women and people of color that we need to see in these fields.
All points well taken. Thank you. Our pipeline is so crucial to fill that and fill up all these fast-growing bioscience jobs that we now have. So Mayor Gallego, over to you in regards to your city's greatest bioscience need and how we can help.
What the folks who are a part of this conversation have been telling me is pretty consistent with what Mayor Ortega and Mayor Romero have said. I am gonna cheat and do 3 greatest needs. So we hear a lot about space, talent, and financing. And maybe I'll build where Mayor Romero left off on the talent side. We want to make sure that our young people know what a STEM bioscience job is. I have a great youth and education committee that helps advise me on it, and they are doing a big push right now to equip school districts with tools to just help kids fall in love with science. I think most of us who are on this conversation had a great teacher or a great moment where you just learned how magical science was and how fulfilling it can be to work in this area. And we want to give that gift to next generation. There's several employers here who have already been active with Phoenix Bioscience High School and others at providing internships or guest speakers. And so the more you can do that, the more it helps me and our ecosystem. The city of Phoenix has invested with Maricopa Community Colleges at the $12 million level to really push forward on STEM careers. And that's fairly broad. So it goes to lab technicians. We've seen a very significant need both from our private sector companies as well as our hospitals for just phlebotomists or others who can really do the actual work that makes this all possible. And so we can provide tuition reimbursement and support with transportation costs and childcare to really help people move into these high wage careers. So it's called Route to Relief. And we would love for you to take advantage of it. So I always try to speak about it when we're talking to bioscience leaders, because we are not getting as many applicants who want to go into bioscience as I like. And maybe you have a super promising person who's on your team right now and who would love to move in a higher paid technical job. We would love to help you make that magic happen. So we are going to continue to invest and appreciate your partnership. We at the City of Phoenix have had a long conversation with Flinn and others about graduate medical education slots. The formulas are antiquated and really penalize fast-growing states. States that had larger populations 20 years ago are still getting the graduate medical education slots that I feel like all of us as mayors can agree we ought to have more of those slots in Arizona. There's been some changes in politics and we maybe have more allies at the federal level. So it may be time to do another major push. And that's an area where I think we are united across party lines. So that also gives me optimism that we can move forward and really get things done in that area.
And thank you, Mayor Gallego. And I know that there's a lot that would need to be done on the federal level to address graduate medical education. Do you see a fundamental role that that cities can play in this regard to increase the number of residency slots?
So really led by the University of Arizona, I have had the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C. and do some lobbying and also work with the association that our medical schools belong to for graduate medical education. They really push, they would like to see the overall number of slots increased and not just a fair distribution. Whatever gets us more slots is good. We feel like we can contribute to increased graduate medical education through making sure there are spaces for it to happen. I am honored that our voters voted to put money into the U of A's facility. We also at the City of Phoenix worked with Creighton we created a community facilities district and did a lot of back-end support to help them come to our community. I mentioned earlier that we are doing financing with Mayo, but that is the same campus where ASU and their medical education partnership are making their biggest investments to further graduate medical education. Although we feel like the whole bioscience sphere also benefits from ASU West, which made a very big announcement in the last month on the west side of our city. And that announcement includes support for the business side of entrepreneurship and innovation, as well as the engineering side. I hope one of the things you'll take away from my remarks today is that I am so proud of the advanced medical devices and semiconductor industry here. And the more we can merge those with the general bioscience community, I think the better off we are as a community.
And in fact, talking about graduate medical education ties into a question that came through the Q&A box. There was another one there too about Alzheimer's disease research. Just addressing either of those topics, any thoughts about ways that that cities can help in those regards? I think to a certain extent, those questions were aimed at the Flinn Foundation too. We can get back through our perspective offline, but just wanted to pose that for any further comments about GME or also for Alzheimer's research.
Well, I just wanted, go ahead. I wanted to say one of the big things in terms of research funds, all of our universities and here at the University of Arizona being a research university, we rely heavily on federal funds for research. And so the relationships that we have as mayors with our universities and how we strategize and plan together and work on funds from the federal government to bring to our communities is a win for all, I believe. And this isn't from Alzheimer's research and drug development to to cancer, to so many other issues that universities in our state are leading on. So big piece of the puzzle is federal funding for this.
Absolutely.
I will mention.
Couldn't agree more.
I will mention, as mayor, many entrepreneurs come through to my office. And I have interacted with two in particular, two researchers from Harvard, opened their headquarters here. It deals with neurological testing, and it is a procedure developed there, and they chose Scottsdale as their headquarters. It would biopsy skin and find traces, of course, of nerve cells and be related to early detection of Parkinson's as well as Alzheimer's. So this is already in production. It's they have over 10,000 tests made and it's approved by the FDA here. So that's a direct result. Another one is an entrepreneur group which was evolved out of research at the U of A and regarding valley fever. So that after a long couple decades of research, they're ready to come to market on a they did testing and found it works on dogs. So they will bring that one to market as a vaccine before the human version. Now, both these companies chose Scottsdale for their headquarters. Whether or not the production ends up being elsewhere or close by, it will be in the valley, by the way. So that's a plus for everyone, and it's a direct result of private sector taking the research elements and then bringing it to market. And that's why we need the full spectrum, the business aspect, the employment aspect, and certainly generated from the encouragement that Flinn Foundation gives at every sector for promising youth and being able to acquire an education at whatever level we're beginning at. So that's really a holistic approach that we're taking every day.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Ortega. And here's an interesting question in the Q&A box. How does the state's water crisis impact the continuing advancement in the bioscience arena? How do we balance that with economic development needs?
I'll be glad to lead off with that discussion. And I know that some of us are on a tight schedule, but before Arizona became a state, water was the question, right? And that's how Salt River Project evolved. That's how later in about 1965, the CAP, Arizona, it's always top of mind. It's not incidental. So our delivery and reliance on Colorado River is under stress, and we are taking actions jointly in the region with Mayor Gallego. We're looking at some IGAs with respect to that. Scottsdale is quite advanced with our water recovery and recharge. So it is something that is at every dinner table, boardroom, and top of mind. It goes hand in hand with energy as well. So that is a fair question, and we will answer that appropriately. And we will need to make some sacrifices in the near future to balance any, let's say, waste of either energy or water in order to thrive in this valley.
And one way that the bioscience community can help us is we are investing in direct potable reuse technologies. So Scottsdale was actually the first in Maricopa County, at least, to develop a facility. Many of you may have participated in the microbrewing challenge we all did together with recycled water, making excellent beer. Last week in my State of the City, I made a big push for a much larger regional facility to do this type of technology. And we are going to need people with scientific backgrounds to explain reverse osmosis and how clean the water can be, and that we have the ability to enhance our water supply through technology and supplies we have right here in the Valley. But people are going to want to hear from scientists that this is a great, clean water supply. So we would love to have your help as trusted voices when we research who are the experts that our voters want to hear from. Our universities in particular have amazing credibility, and you are trusted voices that matter to people when they are making their own public policy decisions. So an ask for help there. And to go back to the previous question about Alzheimer's, the city of Phoenix is very proud to be the largest dementia-friendly city in the United States, which means that we try to really support both research and caregivers. We have memory cafes for individuals who are experiencing a cognitive decline, as well as their caregivers. We have programs at the airport, including quiet spaces to wait and a compassion cacti lanyard that identifies travelers who need space, including many individuals with dementia, to our staff. We also are really trying to support research in that area, and that's one of the reasons I'm excited about the 3 cornerstones of our bioscience physical campuses, from Barrow to Mayo to our downtown universities, all of which have research on neurological advancements and can really help contribute to Alzheimer's. And then at the request of actually 2 people who are participating in this conversation, the city of Phoenix is supporting Senate, well, I guess I am supporting Senate Bill 866, which would address some of the challenges with R&D expensing that came out of the recent federal legislation, and has really particularly disadvantaged some of our small bioscience companies who are likely to come up with products that can really address Alzheimer's and so many other advances we need in this community. So we work together that. We at the city have also supported the Arizona Health Innovation Trust Fund and the R&D tax credit, again, to make sure we have the 3 pieces: the financing, the people, and the space.
Okay, thank you, Mayor
If
Gallego.
Brad, if I can say a little
Yes,
bit on
over to
water,
you.
because
Right.
water, I mean, water is life. And without water, we do not have an economy. And so Tucson has been a leader in water conservation. And we're pushing ourselves even further in terms of conservation. And some of these incredible new opportunities that are coming to Arizona use a lot of water. But one of the things that we are talking here in Tucson with Tucson Water and with my office is that how do we reuse and have self-contained reusable water in these either research sites or companies that are locating here, and how do we reuse the water on site? And so we're exploring that heavily in Tucson, Arizona. And of course, I agree with Mayor Kate that being able to see every drop of water, that's either it's coming from the sky, or it's stormwater, or it's reusable water, or it's potable water, aquifer water, it is important that we see every drop of water as something that is valuable, and we do need our scientists to attest to the science that we're building to be able to use every single drop of water, whether it's reusable water or not. So I think it's important that we share this information amongst each other as cities throughout Arizona and throughout the Colorado River Basin states, so that we can move ahead as thriving desert cities into the future.
Well said. Thank you, Mayor Romero. And I hear a lot of collaboration in all of your remarks, which is wonderful to hear, and it's a key ingredient of Arizona's bioscience success. And with that, I know you all are on tight schedules, and I think we'll have to wrap up this particular segment. But I would like to thank Mayors Gallego and Romero and Ortega very much for their time and their efforts, and thank you to your service, to your cities, and also to Arizonans. We really appreciate it. Thanks for being here.
Enjoyed it.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so much.
Okay, and with that, I'd like to introduce Matt Ellsworth, the Vice President of Communications for the Flinn Foundation, who will take us into our next segment.
Thank you, Brad. I'm pleased to introduce Dr. David Spetzler, President of Caris Life Sciences, a leader in precision medicine for cancer care. Caris has headquarters in Irving, Texas, but is growing very quickly in Phoenix, where the company conducts R&D and has its laboratories for processing patient samples. Dr. Spetzler was raised in Arizona and at ASU earned a PhD in molecular and cellular biology, as well as an MBA. For Caris, he oversees clinical operations, R&D, IT, bioinformatics, and biopharma services. After Dr. Spetzler speaks, we'll have time for questions. So again, please add some in the Q&A box. Dr. Spetzler, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me here today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what does bioscience mean and what are we doing in Arizona specifically that is excelling. And so fundamentally, there are many different aspects of technology that fall under the umbrella of biosciences. The one that I specialize in, that Caris specializes in, is within genomics. And so genomics represents an incredible opportunity to change the way that human health is perceived. And so the way that we think about it is that when you look at every single major advancement in human longevity, in human life, it was predated by a technological innovation. And there's really no better example of that than the invention of the microscope. So the microscope was invented, all of a sudden we discovered germs and bacteria that led to the invention of antibiotics, and antibiotics have had a more profound effect on human health than anything to date. And so what's happening right now is a similar event. So next generation sequencing was invented that allows us to measure all of the DNA and RNA that's within every single one of our cells at unprecedented levels. So Arizona was involved in the Human Genome Sequencing Project, the original one that first decoded the human genome, and then has a major role in the Cancer Atlas, so profiling cancer patients to understand what mutations are driving cancer, and is today the single largest producer of human sequencing data on the planet. So nobody would know that, in fact, there's more sequencing capacity in Phoenix than anywhere else on the planet, but that is in fact true. And so by collecting all of this data, we're creating an opportunity to learn how to control the cellular features that drive disease, because at the end of the day, all disease are cells going wrong. And if we can understand what's going wrong with the cell, then we can go through the process of developing appropriate therapeutics to intervene and cure people of that disease. And so Caris Life Sciences, we're doing that with a focus on oncology, with the focus on solid tumors, trying to identify the underlying therapies that are best for patients today, but also with an eye towards collecting all of the data necessary to cure the world of cancer at large. Because at the end of the day, if we can find cancer early, then we can cut it out and cure it. And that's going to be the most important way for us to address cancer. in so doing, we're also then learning the underlying systems that are driving it. And so those insights that allow us to have a better understanding of oncology also apply to every other disease that's out there. So when we're talking about rheumatoid arthritis or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or diabetes, all of them, every single disease are cells going wrong. And so our ability to understand at the molecular level is key towards making massive advancements. And those advancements will lead to a major increase in human longevity and human health. And we know that from a societal perspective, the cost of healthcare today is really unsustainable. It's not a model that allows us to scale appropriately. And so there's a lot of public debate around the cost of drugs. But what is more important, I would argue, than the cost of drugs is making sure that we're only delivering the drugs to those patients that work for that particular patient. And so we need to have better diagnostics, because if we can identify the disease better, if we can identify the patients that will clinically benefit from the various interventions, we can save tremendous amounts of time. We can save tremendous amounts of suffering for people by only giving them therapeutic interventions that are going to help them. And so the entire bioscience community is really driven towards, solving these major societal problems that are looming in the forefront of our growth as a species. And so when I think about biosciences, I really think about the future. For me, it's about, it's almost like a sci-fi world out there now with the advances of technology. As we generate this data, as we apply artificial intelligence to it, we begin to make discoveries and find opportunities to help people that nobody could have dreamed of 10 years ago, even 20 years ago. The technology didn't exist, the computing power didn't exist. It's really a culmination of advancements on the laboratory side of things, advancements on the computing side of things with new algorithms, with new compute capabilities and opportunities, and a driving knowledge of trying to understand disease. And so when those three things come together, that is the heart of biotechnology. That's the heart of bioscience. And there's an immense amount of it happening here in Arizona. And it really comes from those investments that were made over 20 years ago. So the foundational work done by TGen, the work done by the Human Genome Atlas Project, these are major contributors to the fact that Arizona is a hub for genomics and genetics. And so our ability to then start to leverage that to grow our economic foundation is key. And so I love hearing about all the investments in education. Expanding our opportunity to have high paid jobs is essential to being leaders in this field. And so, talent acquisition is absolutely essential and incredibly meaningful when it comes to building up a bigger base. And that's what we need to do. So I'm super excited about everything that's happening here. And I'll delve into one particular area that I think is most relevant for the future. So the sequencing technology that exists today is very, very powerful, and it's standard of care for late-stage cancer patients. But that technology that exists is about to go through another evolutionary step function. And so applying that technology to the blood has become something of incredible importance. And so as we start to measure what's happening in the blood, what we're finding is that there are fingerprints, genomic fingerprints, that are coming from all the different cell types in the body. And so that becomes incredibly important as we start to think about, how do we diagnose disease faster? How do we find it before it's lethal? How do we make sure that we're understanding it at a stage where we know when to intervene and when not to intervene? And so the application of this technology to the entire population on a massive scale is absolutely key to the collection of information and the advancement of our society's healthcare system. And that type of work is happening here in Phoenix. So we're measuring more genes on more patients at a higher depth of coverage than anyone else on the planet. And that's really amazing. And so as we start to think about the opportunity for a molecular revolution of where we're going to change the nature of how we think about disease, the work that's happening within Phoenix, within Tempe, really the state as a whole, is creating the foundational data component that is needed in order to make these advancements. And so the application of AI to these enormous data sets is going to unlock the potential of human genomics. And that is one of the most exciting places of advancement within the broader bioscience community. And so, yeah, I could keep talking about this all day long, but I know that there's a significant discussion component to this, and I want to make sure I don't monopolize all the time just by talking.
Hardly. Thank you very much for providing that really wonderful context about what Arizona has been part of and where we're headed. To look backwards a little bit, can you talk about your own background? What prepared you to join this particular company right when you did, and be ready for the role that you now have at Caris, which is clearly a company that's evolving very quickly?
Yeah, so I had my first lab job when I was 12 years old. I was actually working in the basement at Barrow Neurological Institute, cleaning test tubes. And so I've always had a love of science and an attachment to the laboratory. When I was in graduate school, my oldest daughter was born with severe special needs. And so at that time, I was focused on mathematics. And that event changed everything for me. And so I went towards genomics and genetics back when it was still not really a major thing. And so I happened to be somebody who knew both mathematics and molecular biology, which was very, very rare. I knew that to properly care for her, I would need to make the transition into industry. So I picked up the MBA as well. And so, having the math, having the biology, and having kind of that business component put me into a great position. So I was hired as an entry-level scientist at Caris, the very first bioinformatics scientist back before that was even really a word and a term that we used to describe it. And just happened to have that right combination of skill set to enable the development of what it is today. So I got fairly lucky with that.
Yeah. Well, everyone needs to begin as a dishware attendant in a scientific career, so it sends you to the great places. Can you talk about today the range of skills and experience that Caris is seeking in the new researchers and scientists and data scientists that it's hiring, and where do you find the people that you're hiring?
Yeah, so we find a lot of them at ASU. About 25% of the employee base that we have comes from ASU. There might be a bias there as I spent so much time at ASU, although we hire plenty of wildcats as well. A lot of it actually, we need to train the people. So we have extensive training programs. We actually have a collaboration with ASU where our employees can earn their PhD either in molecular cellular biology or biochemistry while being full-time employees, and we pay all the tuition costs. So it's a really neat example of how you can have kind of a public-private partnership where all the classes are done at ASU, all the research is done in our labs at Caris, and so it's an oversight. We have PIs from both Caris and from ASU to facilitate that graduate level education, and thus enables kind of the creation of a larger talent pool. And so that's really important, I think, to our growth, both for Caris as well as our society. Having those programs be larger with more access is going to be very, very important. The engineering program at ASU is incredible, and so tapping into to that to facilitate the next evolution and the next generation of biomedical engineers is going to be incredibly important. And so we're looking for people that understand the math and the biology as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a model that other private companies should think about, with whether it's with ASU or NAU and Flagstaff or U of A in Tucson.
Any of them. It's really nice because it's the company is paying full tuition, so it's not taking scholarship money away from other students in need. The employees have great wages, health insurance. It's a very neat model.
Yeah. So we heard earlier today from the governor and from 3 key mayors. When you think about your policy wish list, maybe for Caris specifically, but maybe more broadly for the biosciences, what's on it? What sorts of policies are you looking for our leaders to help develop?
So the one that I think is missing the most is probably one that is most controversial and most difficult. So in biosciences, at the end of the day, we become healthcare providers. And so we run up against the problem of insurance coverage. And that's really challenging because anytime you're doing something new, the road to reimbursement is very, very long. And so Arizona recently passed a law that said that any biomarker testing that is part of guideline is basically covered by Medicare, has to be covered by private payers as well, which is great, but coverage does not equal payment, right? So you can cover a test and pay $1 for it, and that creates a gap there. And so I think that we need to not just have investment in terms of the creation of these various products and services, but also figure out a way to kind of close the gap at the end so we can have self-sufficient staining industry that can stand on its own. And that's going to be important. It's a national topic, right? There's so many patients that, their standard of care pathway is not covered by their insurance, that it's really unfortunate. And that healthcare reform is going to be critical to the advancement of biosciences everywhere.
For sure. And so quickly, the science is changing so quickly, the technology that's available, what was standard of care easily covered is no longer the case. Go ahead.
It's really crazy, actually. So on average, there's one new indication per week in oncology with a new drug approval. And so the doctors have a hard time keeping up with it. The payers have a very hard time keeping up with it. And so, having a way to keep up with the science and paying for what's appropriate and not paying for what's not appropriate, it is key. We really have to figure this out.
Mm-hmm. You got right to one of my other questions, which is in terms of the practice of oncology, certainly payers are a huge part of that, also medical education. What do you see that needs to be changed on the clinical delivery side to ensure that precision medicine of the kind that you've described here is available to all patients when they need it?
Yeah, I mean, the physician education component of what we're talking about is massive. I mean, most oncologists are generalists, and so they're seeing all types of different cancer. And when we talk about, cancer, we like to kind of bucket it into, okay, here's cancer, but then we'll call it, lung cancer or breast cancer or colon cancer. There are more than 830 different types of cancer. And each one of them usually has its own treatment strategy and paradigm. And so, it's just not possible to contain all of that information inside your head at a moment's notice to go this way or that way. And so having kind of care pathways, making sure that, there's a very easy path to know exactly what type of cancer we're working with and how that current standard of care paradigm has evolved is of critical importance. And so there's a lot of underlying infrastructure that does exist already today that we can utilize for that, but it takes a team then. So it's not just up to the oncologist alone. I mean, they're definitely front line, but there should be teams of scientists supporting them and helping them know the difference between how do you treat this patient that has an NTRK1 fusion event that happens 1 out of every 1,000 patients. So there are so many, kind of rare esoteric components now that there are approved therapies that really have an impact on them, that education piece is of critical importance.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions in the chat regarding AI, which you've mentioned a couple of times. And I think from maybe a couple of years ago when I looked at the Caris website until now, that that term is more present than it used to be. So you've got a commitment at Caris to integrating AI tools into improving cancer care. So you probably have a better sense than most of us about where this technology is going for your company specifically, but for healthcare more generally. What do you think we should expect from AI in healthcare in the decade to come?
It's a great question. So the way I think about AI is informed by mathematics. So, the vast majority of AI algorithms have actually been in existence for hundreds of years, sometimes 1,000 years. So K nearest neighbors was the linear form invented by Occam of Occam's razor back in the year 1000, right? So AI is not necessarily new math as we talk about it in the molecular science arena, but it is having new data sources and the computational ability to run that math millions and millions and millions of times and iterations to find improvements and optimizations. And so I think what we're going to find is that we can utilize these machine learning algorithms to find patterns that are far too complex for the human brain to identify. And when we find those patterns, that's going to create diagnostic pathways and treatment pathways that will increase the efficiency of healthcare intervention by many orders of magnitude. And so as we start to think about, what does the future look like and the application of AI, I think it's going to be, okay, you go in every year and you get your blood test, but instead of, just testing for HDL and LDL, we're also going to be doing molecular measurements that allow us to say, oh, hey, you're beginning to develop, liver cancer. Oh, but don't worry about it. Your immune system already knows about it. And this one is going to be taken care of naturally. Or, oh, hey, wait a second. This one's escaping the immune system. Let's go ahead and intervene, but it's not going to take much. Take this pill for 6 weeks and let's come back and measure it again. And so, we're sitting on this crucible moment when the technology is existing now and it's cheap enough and broad enough that we can create this massive data set that's never existed before. And then application of AI to that is going to just reveal all of these underlying features to disease that then we can attack through various therapeutic strategies.
And do you have any concerns about, well, maybe about how AI will be regulated in healthcare, and then also public perception and anything that advocates of the biosciences ought to be doing to ensure that we move in the right direction and prepare the way for that kind of a future?
So I think regulation is important. I think that in healthcare especially, we're talking about people's lives. And so, there needs to be diligence and scrutiny over anything new. So I'm a fan of regulation in this area. It's too important, and there should be rules to the road without question. I think at the end it's going to come down to kind of a balance between privacy and an advancement of the science. So as we get more and more deep into the genomic data, it becomes more and more of that personalized fingerprint. So if you have my entire genome, then that is me. And so, that becomes an identifiable piece of data, and we need to understand that is that if you're measuring, enough and you have a database to be able to look things up. And so, but that's also the data that we need to find all these patterns and to make the healthcare advances that are so necessary to allow our society to take that next, evolution. And so I think that we're going to have a very thorough debate as to how to balance those two things. And that's a very healthy debate for society. It's important. Where we land, I don't know, but the more we talk about it, the better place we will end up.
Okay, thank you. Well, I know we're nearing the end of our time, and so Eve will be back to close us out in just a second, but while I have you here for a moment, I just want to say a personal thanks to Caris. MPI, the Molecular Profiling Institute that was acquired by Caris several years ago. That was one of the first stops for my dad when he was diagnosed with melanoma, and it helped to guide his care and give him a lot more time with us. And so I'll always be grateful for the kind of benefit that we received, that people of Arizona received from the technology developed here that is now being advanced here as well. So thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt and Dr. Spetzler, and thank all of you for attending today. On behalf of the roadmap, of the Bioscience Roadmap Steering Committee, I'd like to thank our featured speakers, Governor Hobbs, Mayors Gallego, Ortega, and Romero, and Dr. David Spetzler for joining us today. Since day one, the roadmap has been viewed as a private-public partnership with the government and elected officials playing a vital role. It's instructive for us to hear their perspectives and insights today, as well as how we could help them. I think in the Caris story, you saw the example of when we all work together, the results can be astounding. Caris is an innovative, fast-growing company that is making life better for everyone while thriving in Arizona. And it grew directly out of the very early work with TGen and civic leaders to put together the funding to fund some of the early Arizona roadmap initiatives. So, in the vein of continuing forward, looking backward, but continuing forward, we'll be back next year with this same progress event. Next year, we'll have the latest data on the performance of our bioscience ecosystem. In the meantime, if you would like to stay abreast on bioscience developments in Arizona, the Flinn Foundation has a weekly newsletter that compiles the latest news, and there's a link that Brian just put up in the chat box to subscribing to that newsletter. Thank you everyone for attending. This has been, we think, our best attended progress report yet. We hope you'll stay engaged with the roadmap and help us move Arizona's bioscience sector forward. Please look for an email from Flinn Foundation soon with links to the Flinn progress brochure, a video of today's program, and other resources. Have a good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for attending.